Hey, what's happening? We are back. Dirty South Podcast, World Wrestling, SC Wrestle. It's been a heck of a month. We've been traveling all over the place and finally back from Fargo, and we're here. And we're going to talk Fargo, wrap it up for the Southeast.
Yeah, man. So for those of you that haven't seen, I think the last one we did was me driving in the car and it pausing all the time as we were trying to do a second preview. You were on your way to Lima, and
Yeah.
man, then I'll tell you, I write that Fargo is a circus. I don't know that unless you've been there, you understand how much of a circus it is. It is 30 mats. You got kids all over the place, taking pictures of them, trying to get information, look, it's set up the best it can, but it can be for us because we can sit and we can work and we can do lots of different things. But there's just so many people and there's so
It
much
is.
going on. It's
It
a
is
ton of
wild.
fun, but it is crazy. I
A
will
lot of
say,
work.
I will say, I love the Greco days because it kind of spreads out a little bit. There's a lot more room to kind of maneuver. Now to the freestyle days, man, you're trying to fight your way through different places to get to a
Oh,
position and everything else.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to run through because I think I don't know, it might have been KJ or one of those guys was on mat three, I think it was, on the front corner there from the stage, and I'm all the way over by eight, and I'm trying to come over, and I bump into this lady, and she yells at me like, "Excuse me!" I'm like, "Oh!" But I didn't do anything to her there. I went through and got to my place so I could take pictures of the kids. And then I noticed she was the really nice lady that was walking the finalists when they come off over to get their photos taken. So I walked over to her and I'm like, man, I'm really, really sorry. And she's like, I'm just tired of getting bumped. I'm like, well, I feel your pain, but I just wanted to apologize. But there's just no way around it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, for those of you that are interested, you might if you go through the photos I took and you see the patterns, you see patterns, and the patterns are, I'm on 7, 8, 9, that area of the tournament, and I'm taking pictures, and there's Southeast kids coming up all the time down in that area, and then there's a kid I want to take a picture of who's over on 30 or 29 or whatever. I mean, we're talking all the way across. And to walk there would be no big deal. To walk there with 10,000 people in your way, I mean, I was missing
Oh,
matches left and right.
yeah. You know what I started doing? I started beelining through the mats. So I said, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to take a
That,
shortcut. I know it's a little illegal procedure there, but I would go right between the circles, zoom, and then I'd zigzag through the people, zoom, hit another one, zigzag, zoom, because there's just no way. There's no way. But and
yeah.
uh and it was awesome. But yeah, and for me, obviously, I'll have to default to Jason a lot on the girls and the first day and a half of freestyle because I was down in South America at Lima, Peru, which was really really cool to see that. I got to go with Team Puerto Rico, also got to see Team USA, and got to meet a lot of people from Brazil and Canada and Ocho Rios and different kids from the states that are competing in all those different countries. And we have coaches from Florida that were coaching on some of those different teams. So it was pretty cool to go and experience that. I've never been a part of anything like that before. I mean, I was at the Olympic trials, but it was still very different. As big as the Olympic trials is, this was more intimate, where the boys come out of a tunnel or the girls come out of a tunnel and they stand there. And when you're on deck, you're just standing there watching everything going on, and then you get walked to your mat and everything. And but it was cool. It was cool to meet everybody and get to see some of America stars and some of South America stars and some of the
Mhm.
island stars, and just awesome. But then to jump on a plane and go from there to Chicago, there to Miami to Chicago to you to get right on the mat at noon was quite a feat.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It was like The Walking Dead, everyone. So
Yes, that's exactly what it was. And your wife's like, "You're crazy. You don't want me to take you to the house?" I'm like, "Nope, let's get going." So yeah, it was, and that night we were doing pictures, and I think my head just hit the table almost. And you're like, "All right, it's you need to go to
you need to
bed."
go to sleep. Yeah, no doubt.
Oh,
The girls, you know, we're gonna recap the girls first because they were actually the first ones
yeah,
who.
and I mean, we can throw something out like real quick, and I want to say to
Mhm.
you, just real quick before we get into girls, Southeast now. This is for what you covered and what we talk about when we talk about Southeast is Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and the two Carolinas, correct?
Mhm. Yep.
That's seven. I got that right. And Florida. I said Florida probably. Right. So those states, All Americans, total All Americans were 59. There was five champions, but six stop signs. We had a young man from Georgia brought home two.
Mhm.
The one thing that was really cool was 11 runner ups. So we were, I mean, so close to just, I mean, that could have been a lot more, but 11 Southeast boys and girls in total in the finals. So that's pretty cool. Tennessee with 14 All Americans, one champ, Georgia 14. Two champs, one of them was a double champ, as we just mentioned. Florida had 19 All Americans, unfortunately, zero champs. South Carolina had seven All Americans, one champ. So shout out to
Zayo.
Zayo. I got all the letters right. Um, Alabama, five All Americans, zero champs. So, with that being said, I know we'll get into the girls first, and I'll have to default to you, but pretty good showing for the Southeast. I mean, 59 All Americans, five champs, six stop signs.
Yeah. So you asked that question in an email, or not an email, in a text to me before we got on, and I did some thinking about it, and it's I think everything is kind of give and take. There are pluses and minuses. There are things that are awesome about it, and there are things that are, well, we could have done better in this particular situation. Um, the first thing I think that you have to pay attention to is the fact that all seven states were present. So Mississippi, Bear Bryant Siegel, congratulations, first Mississippi wrestler to compete in Fargo. It is a great thing, and I hope that it continues to grow and continues to be a thing. Um, you you have to start somewhere, and yeah, Bear Bryant did not
Yeah.
have the tournament that he wanted to have. I know that. I know Mississippi probably wanted to send more, but you start where you start, and you don't get to numbers like this and having someone on the stage and wrestling for a national title or national titles or double champs overnight. It takes time. So I think it's pretty cool to have Mississippi there.
Yeah.
I think that's
And
number
if they
one.
bring and if they bring two next year, they've increased to 100%. They've increased their athlete take by 100%.
Yeah, no, and it's a little bit at a time, and I
There's
think
got
that.
to be more than that wrestle there. I mean, come on, Mississippi.
No,
Let's
there
go.
and there is, but they only started sanctioned high school wrestling not that long ago. So
That's awesome.
you know, um,
Good stuff. Well, you said about Alabama. I mean, we were talking about Alabama a little bit, and I kind of default to you with that. And you were really excited about their showing, um, having five All Americans. That hasn't happened over the years, right? I mean, so that's growth right there for Alabama.
yeah. So Alabama is a perfect example of a peaks and valleys kind of state, right? If you look back to 2019, they had one All American. You look back to 2021, they had two All Americans. If you look at the Fargo Almanac, many of their All Americans, and there's not a ton, happen within the 2000s. So we're talking about a state that is so very small, like in terms of numbers. In 2022, they had 10. So they had a really, really good showing in 2022. They had 20 in 2023, they had five. So, one of the things I think with Alabama was they didn't get a girl All-American this year. They've had one. I don't know if they've had one every single year, but definitely Evelyn Holmes Smith. There were several individuals who had a shot to make the podium and didn't. The continued growth for the girls, I think, is going to be really important. But the junior boys and the 16U boys, both in Greco and freestyle, they struggle a little bit. It's almost like they're beginning the process, whereas these kids from Illinois and Pennsylvania have been wrestling Greco and freestyle since they were like, could walk. The Alabama kids are like, maybe they have 3 or 4 years experience, but they don't have the same number of experience or level of experience. When you get to the juniors, things change. In years past, Corey Land, this year, Deshaun Poe, right? You had Jamison Thomas, you had Will Atkinson. There's no way I'm gonna be able to list everybody and remember everybody's names, but you had kids who it was their first time on the podium, and kids who will be back to Fargo or have an opportunity to come back to Fargo in the future. So talking about building on success, having kids who have made the podium and have a chance to come back, that's a big deal.
Was this Evelyn's first time up at junior?
No, this is her second year at juniors.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, she was
one match away. She was in the blood round.
Yeah. Yeah. She's awesome. I would have liked to seen her do it, but stuff happens and that's it. But man, so I mean, do you want to go you want me to go state by state? You want to just talk wrestling? You want me to ask you who surprised you, who didn't surprise you? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, let's go. That's a good question. I was going to start with the girls and kind of go through that, but I actually think the way we're doing it right now makes sense. So let's shift to a state, and let's shift to a state that surprised. What's a state do you think that surprised lots of people?
I'm gonna say Tennessee.
Okay. So there are two states, and one of those two states is Tennessee. Why Tennessee?
They had four All-Americans in junior men Greco.
Mm-hmm.
They had four All-Americans in 16U women's, and they brought home a champion in Jania Johnson. 3 All-Americans in Tennessee in men's Greco and freestyle. So what's crazy is, so they had a couple champs, which gives them the point standing, right? So even though Florida had 19 All-Americans and Tennessee had 14 All-Americans, I think it is, because of the way the points work as far as placement and a champion, they showed higher in the point standings.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean,
well, and exactly what you're talking about. So all you have to do. So you mentioned a couple of their champs, Jania Johnson, right? Champ, which was unbelievable in 16U. She was great. But you look at it, Caroline Hilton, second, 16U girls. Ella Murphy, second, junior girls. Hudson Chittum, second, 16U boys, both styles, right? Ryder Smith, second, 16U men's freestyle. I mean, you had a lot of finalists from the state of Tennessee. Jose Cordero made the finals for Tennessee on junior boys. You had a lot run to that point. They couldn't quite get over the hump to win it, but man, you had a lot of Tennessee singlets on the stage when at the end of the tournament. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, you could hear as you're around the arena, you always hear like coaches talking, other states talking, referees talking. We sit around the media, so we hear whispers there, and a lot of people were saying, man, Tennessee has really come along, and you could hear people talking about Tennessee, and it was good to hear, because we know a lot of guys from there, and they do a great job building that state and that wrestling program, and yeah, it was good to see
and
them
just
go.
so everybody knows, there's a huge Florida connection to the state of Tennessee. So Mike Hatcher, who is the state chair for the state of Tennessee, used to coach when I coached back in Florida. He coached at Martin County High School. So for those of you who don't know, Hatcher is now kind of helping direct some of the stuff that happens up in Tennessee. As a state chair, I'm sure he's kind of directing a lot more than he probably wants to necessarily. But and you have seen their programs get better. They had 11 All-Americans in 2019. They had 6 in 2021, but 2022 they had 17. Now they've had 14. They've had 14 last year, 14 this year, and we're not talking. And there's nothing wrong with taking 7th or 6th or something along those lines, but there were a ton that were second.
Yeah,
It was an impressive showing by the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw. Did you see my show with Mace on Team Florida?
I didn't yet. No, I've been. Unfortunately, everybody, I have kind of gone a little radio silent because I have my job that I'm like trying to catch up with.
Yeah, so we'll get into that. But before we go to another state, but how about that? I mean, that Chittum family. Wow. I mean, I mean, to be in the finals and take second in both styles. Now, did he face Mills both times?
No, he faced Mills in freestyle. He did not face Mills in Greco. Mills
they
missed
separated the weight. Oh,
Mills missed weight. Just like for Greco. Yeah, and my heart goes out to Hudson. Like little Hudson Chittum is one of my favorites to watch. He's just a great kid. He's so much fun to kind of watch him wrestle and kind of be around just as a person. And yeah, to come up second twice, man, that's tough. But he's great. And I'll tell you, if I'm going to point to a particular direction, Baylor had some real success. The Norman boys, Hunter Sturgill. They also had Gabe Swan, who won it for the state of Georgia, but will be at Baylor coming this fall. So they will have 4 All-Americans in their lineup, Fargo All-Americans in their lineup, come this fall's team.
Wow. Well, a good job by them and a good job by Tennessee, and look forward to seeing that. So pivoting to Florida,
mm-hmm.
The 19 All-Americans, we had one in the finals with Giovanni Solis, mm-hmm. And maybe you saw the post. I mean, just for him to come back and wrestle Greco that hard and then go through after his injury. I mean, I remember seeing him after one of his late round freestyle matches, and he's rolling around on one of the practice mats, holding his knee in severe pain. But I had all the kids, I had some of the All-Americans on my show when we first got back. And I asked them.
Did you do it one at a time, or did you get everybody on one thing?
Everyone on one thing. I couldn't get Jovan. I couldn't get Tovar because he had a biology test. But I gave him my phone number, and I told him to reach out anytime he would like to come on. He doesn't speak that much, right? He's kind of like to himself a little bit, Giovanni, which is good.
Quiet.
Fine by him. But if he wants to come on, he can. But yeah, I had them together. But he said, well, the reason I kept going is my brother EJ took 5th in Greco, and I had to do better than him, so I had to go. I had to go wrestle Greco. But that was cool. But all those guys, I mean, obviously, in Greco, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Freestyle, that's for boys. Freestyle boys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then, of course, the girls. The girls in Florida, 2, 16U and 3, or no, and 1, 2, 3, 4 in girls. One thing I noted about Florida, and I mean, to tell you now, I wasn't there for the girls, so you'll have to talk about that. I was happy. I know Maya Bethel is an absolute hammer. She ran into a hiccup there early in the tournament because I was trying to keep an eye on her. but kudos to her for coming all the way back and taking third. I mean, she had to
Hmm.
come all the way back. She had to
Hmm.
wrestle through that gauntlet. So good for her, and congratulations to those. But as far as the boys is concerned, you'll hear some people whisper, and I asked Mace about this, well, no, but one in the finals, we've had champions all these years. Was it a down year? So my response is, and his is, well, first of all, three of our champions didn't even wrestle this year, right? Because one is through surgery, one is training for a world team, and as far as a girl, I saw her in Lima take a gold medal, right? But correct me if I'm wrong. There was 20 or more boys in the on the freestyle side in the blood rounds, and I remember you writing about it, saying, "Wow, Florida leads the way with 20 or 22 in the blood round," and they were all underclassmen. Eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, maybe some 11th grade in there. So the youth of Florida, the process is working, and I feel like the bubble's gonna burst here shortly. What is your opinion on that?
Did Mason confirm that it was like that many in the blood round, or did he mention it?
He didn't confirm, but I remember counting through it, and I remember you put out on one of your review boards where you said Florida was leading the way with a
So I
huge
know,
number of.
yeah. So I know I did that for the girls. I don't remember doing that for the boys.
But either
So
way, how
yeah, no,
close is that? How close is that? Right?
yeah. So the first thing I would say is Florida did have, I think, 10 junior girls in the blood round. So 10 junior girls in the blood round, and they end up going 4 of 6 in the blood round. Four get through. Milana, Maya, Christina Borgman, who looked absolutely fantastic, and Kanea Moore, who ended up taking 8th. And you get to this is where I think it's really important. Like, you get to that blood round, and it's that I mean, you're down to the top 12 wrestlers in the nation. I mean, this is the top the number 3 through number 12 are sitting there competing with one another to get onto the podium in Fargo after grinding through a hugely difficult tournament. Is it Do you want to go 9-1? Do you want to go 10-0? 100%, right? You want every single one of those kids to win. I mean, they're so close to being all Americans. But you look around, and somebody is pulling a stud coming back through. And unfortunately for some of them, one of them was pulling Maya Bethel, from another state was pulling Maya, right? And
Right,
and
right, right,
that
right.
was gonna be tough. I mean, she was just gonna roll right through you, because I haven't calculated it up, but I'd really like to know the number of quarterfinalists that lose and then lose again, because it's so hard to think that you're one match away from the semis. Your goal is to win a title, and now you're fighting for your life on the backside in that blood round. So
And
look,
if you get knocked out early, it's like 12. I mean, you've got to go through a ton of matches.
it is, but one of the things you do is you create there's an element of creating some momentum. You're not coming off a loss. You're coming off wins, many wins in a row. You know what I mean? And that can actually have a huge impact on you. So, and especially the girls, I was thinking the blood round happened that next morning. So you leave the event, the arena, with a loss in the quarters, and your next match the next morning, if you have not put your head in the right spot to think about how you're going to overcome that loss, you could take
Yeah.
another loss and then be out. So
I'm just impressed at how the depth of Florida is getting better, and we have a lot of young kids that went out in that blood round that are
Yeah.
going to be back. And then we have a lot of kids that sixth, seventh grade that'll be eighth grade next year that are absolute hammers coming up. And I think the process is working there. As far as surprises on the Florida side, what was did you have a couple of kids that you thought, huh, interesting. I didn't pick that one. Or wow, that one looked good.
um, Interesting. It's a good question. So I think, I think if I were to look through it, I'm not surprised by Giovanni Solis or Giovanni Tovar, right? Kind of expected them. KJ has been onto the podium previously. Wasn't surprised by his presence there. Peter was a 16U, is a first year 16U, but the name Mako, whether it's right or wrong, kind of sets you up that it's not going to be a surprise if you make the podium, and it's not. The expectation is there. And then you look at you look at your juniors, and your juniors much better, like the CJ Torreses, the Zeno Moores, the Gunnar Hollands, the Anderson Heaps. These are all kids that you're not really surprised about them being present. I know you want to say Roderick Brown. We're not surprised by Roderick, but because
but he didn't pick him.
But because Roderick was a blood rounder last year, right?
Yeah.
So to see him get through and be on the podium,
and the blood round and freestyle again this year, but I was going to say Tyree Graham. I mean, he had a tough tournament last year.
I was going to go with two names, and Tyree Graham was one of the names.
Yeah, I thought he had a hell of a tournament.
Right. So Graham actually had an unbelievably good tournament. In both styles, I think he only All-Americaned in freestyle, but he wrestled both styles exceptionally tough. And then the other one was Reed Yakes, who made really the podium in 16U Greco. I wasn't surprised by any of the girls. Kanea Moore, Christina Borgman, Borelli, and Maya Bethel all making the podium. Those I probably would have said I would expect all of them to make the podium. But again, this is such an important thing to talk about, because if you're in the state, you're looking at Gunnar Holland, right, or Anderson Heat, and you're saying, how did Gunnar Holland take 7th in junior Greco or junior freestyle? And you go, unless you've been there and you see who they're wrestling and the level of competition that they're competing against, this is the best of the best. That bracket was 256 kids.
Unbelievable.
And Gunnar wrestled his butt off. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that I absolutely love is he wrestled his 7th to 8th place match as hard as he wrestled any other match in the tournament.
Yeah, and then he said to both of us off the mat, man, thank God I was in a college room the last couple months. He says, I've never, obviously for circumstances that he couldn't control, he didn't make it the last few years, but he said, this is the hardest tournament I think he's ever been a part of. He was saying if I never knew how hard this tournament was or realized it. And if I didn't practice the last 2 months with college kids, there's no way I All-American here. I mean, you were there. So.
Yep. No, I think there's a realization. It's why in my preview or my fans guide I wrote, day 2, right? Day 2 on the thing, because there are a lot of kids who don't get to day 2. It's a lot of money. It's a long way to go 0-2, to go 1-2. And it's a great experience to have, but a lot of people go up there wanting to win a title or have these aspirations of winning a title. And the truth is, they're not really all that close. And getting 3-2 or 4-2, getting 4 wins in Fargo is a hell of an accomplishment. It really is. And it hopefully
Getting a win is, I mean,
well, and hopefully what it does is it sets the person up to understand, like, this is the level I need to get to. This is how I need to get there. And am I going to continue this process? And that's actually one of the things I like about Team Florida and what they're doing. Yes, in years past, they've had 20 All-Americans or 26 All-Americans. I think in 2022, they had 30 All-Americans. This year they had 19 All-Americans. So, we do see these ebbs and flows as it kind of goes with every single state, but it's every single state. Some are up, some are down, some are up, some are down. And it depends upon this group of coming in. Are they first year 16Us? Are they second year 16Us? Are they this? Are they that? And you, where are they in the process, and where will they be? And are they going to continue that process of getting better? Also, remember, Team Florida, as well as many other states, they left some kids at home that probably could have made a run to the podium. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that Bowie, Mako, and Bartelt are they would have something to say about the finals. I think they're pretty good. What do they have? 2, 4, 6 stop signs between them.
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, so they're terrible. The one thing that Mason said was he's always excited to see like kids like Roderick, Heap, and first of all, congratulations to Heap and Gunner, both to do it together. They've been together since they were like 5 years old. They've won state tournaments together. They've won many tournaments together. They went on their recruiting trips together. Uh, Very close friends, and to see them finally All-American at this tournament together, good for them. But what he said was he likes to see kids like Rod, blood round kid, Gunner, who hadn't been there yet, and Heap, who they've all graduated. They all have their plans together. They have what they needed. They're ready to go to college, but they still felt like they had unfinished business, and they decided to make the trip. And to see kids come out like that and do that for any state, he has a lot of respect for that. So, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I agree, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who they've already decided they're gonna go to college or wrestle or they're whatever, but they still look at it with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, right? And they're like, yeah, I got some things I need to get done, right? So, speaking of things that are pretty cool, we had, I think it was 3 sibling pairs All-American from the Southeast.
Very cool. Mills,
right?
obviously, is one of them. Right.
The Mills, Araya Mills and Antonio Mills, both All-American for the state of Georgia. Genevieve and Ronan On from the state of Georgia, both All-American, brother, sister. And we missed in the state of Tennessee, Zachary and Jarvis Little, who both All-American for the state of Tennessee. So,
and I forgot to ask you
fun.
Before we go on to Georgia. But anyway, shout out to Florida. Listen, 19 All-Americans is a hell of a job. I'm proud of my state. I'm proud of those kids. They go out there and they work hard, and good for everybody. Congratulations to everyone. But I forgot to ask you on the Tennessee side, was there anybody that surprised you that ended up on the All-American or made a run?
Yeah. So I wasn't surprised by any of the kids who made the podium for the state of Tennessee. The one thing that I was uncertain of, and that was Ryder Smith. Ryder Smith wrestles for Little Chattanooga Christian School, right? He dominates the Division II tournament up there, but I'd never seen him on the national stage. I'd never seen him, and a lot of times, kids who dominate in a particular area, they go to a big tournament and it doesn't necessarily translate because they're not used to that level of competition. Ryder Smith ran all the way to the 16U freestyle finals at 215 pounds. He wrestled a kid from Wisconsin in the semifinals who was 6'7". Tallest wrestler I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, it was just crazy. But no, Ryder wrestled great. And I wasn't surprised to see him on the podium, but man, he just proved to me that
Yeah.
I knew he was a real deal.
And he's
But
only 16.
yeah. Yeah, he doesn't look 16, man. He's a big, strong kid. Big, strong kid.
Yeah. I mean, listen,
Before,
there were kids wrestling juniors that are freshmen in high school.
yeah.
So
Well,
that's
and there are kids wrestling juniors who will be 16 or who will be freshmen in college this coming fall.
yeah, it's unbelievable. And one thing, and there's a lot to talk about with Georgia. I know Georgia had a good showing, but the one thing, South Carolina, how about Zal finally pulling it off, huh?
Yeah, so I'm glad you transitioned there. Let's talk about North Carolina first, then let's go to South Carolina. And I want to just say real quick, because North Carolina did not have any All-Americans, which is the first time in a number of years that they haven't. And the thing that was really surprising about the state of North Carolina was this was probably their best squad that they brought. So just because you bring a great squad doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make the podium. They had more wins. They had better wrestling going on this weekend. But if you're only counting All-Americans, they look like they took a step back. And that's not the way to count things. Okay. Is counting All-Americans an important count? Absolutely. but state of North Carolina had Anna Ackerman, Bentley Sly. They had a number of individuals make the blood round, super close to making the podium for their age group and for their weight. They just came up a little bit short. Talking about not coming up a little bit short and finally punching her ticket as a Fargo champ. Huge shout out to Zeo Estrada. It was so good to see Zeo overcome. And man, I'll tell you what, you weren't there, but she looked like she was on a mission.
Yeah, and I kept trying to watch it on my phone, but it would pause and then it would go, then it would pause and it would go, and then finally I saw the prayer towards the end. So I wasn't there live, obviously, with you being there live. That must have been awesome. But we're definitely going to have her back on the show here. Not today as we recap, but she knows that we want her back on.
Yeah, so Zeo made a great run. Annalise Marillet, who was an All-American a couple years ago for 16U, she was the other All-American for the girls. South Carolina had quite a few. What, they had 7 All-Americans.
That might have been one of their best years. I think I saw somebody post, right?
It was definitely one of their best years. Yeah, they have had 1, 2, 4, 5 in years past. But you know where they made hay? They made their presence known in Greco, except for the girls who won freestyle. No other All-Americans from South Carolina were in freestyle, and they had some good runs in freestyle. But Kason Howell, Riley Hucks, Montero Royal, Stefano Calderon, and William Jakeway all were All-Americans in Greco. And it's
William
not a surprise.
Jakeway, man. I am so happy to see William Jakeway doing so well. I remember meeting him for the first time during COVID, and he came on my show as a little guy. And every time I see him at every tournament, he comes up, gives me a hug. And now he's a grown kid. He's wrestling juniors. He has stuck with the same coach and the same process throughout, from Colorado all the way to South Carolina. He's moved with him, and it's obviously paying off for him, and good for him.
Yeah, so I will say South Carolina is on the precipice of really being good in Greco. Like, I mean, it's a smaller state. They're never going to dominate. They're never going to be like, they're not likely going to be winning a team title in Greco necessarily. Although Idaho did it, I think last year, 2 years ago, and it's a small state. But man, I'll tell you what, they're getting better and better, and being better in Greco. They wrestled well in freestyle as well. I mean, Case and Howell took fourth, I think, in Greco, and nearly made the podium in freestyle as well.
And
Pretty
obviously,
impressive.
people sometimes take Coach Estrada the wrong way, but you know what the right way is to take him? The man can coach. He loves the kids, and he's really brought something to Tennessee with what he's doing down there, and I
South
mean to
Carolina.
South Carolina, to what he's doing down there, and I think even all the coaches around South Carolina would probably say it's been good to have him coming in. You know, he is who he is. God bless him. He's come a long way, and you and I know him, and I'm really happy for he and his family that they're doing well. But I think his focus on those Olympic styles and nothing else is we could see the growth, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and even kids who didn't make the podium, like Cy Strobel or George Mayholtz, or I mean, I could go through a list of actually South Carolina kids who made deep runs through the tournament. They wrestled really, really well. Um, I was impressed. I was impressed. If you were to ask me the 7 teams, right? Tennessee would be my number 1 team as far as the most impressed of kind of what I expected. Just because they really, really performed exceptionally well. South Carolina would be number 2. To get Montero Royal into the finals against Hayden Schwab in Greco in 16U, I mean, he lost, and I know he's very, very disappointed by that loss. But he had a great run. I have some beautiful pictures of some throws that Montero's like tossing some kid all the way around. So
Yeah, it was fun to watch. And again, Zayo, man, good for you. She said you either want to lose your first match of the tournament or win your last. So she finally won her last. And a lot of the wrestlers tell me they'd rather come in third than second, and just to win that last match. I hear it a lot from the kids and some as they grow up. I think when they become adults, looking back, they might say, "Damn, I wish I would have been in the finals there. That would have been cool, right?" But I think something about winning that last match and being able to walk off like, "Okay, that was a good tournament," right?
yeah, yeah. It's I don't know how I feel about that statement. I mean, I understand it.
Yeah.
I certainly understand it in the moment. In the moment, it's got to be like the worst feeling in the absolute world. Um, if you ask them 3 weeks afterwards, would they feel differently? Well, Zayo doesn't. Zayo will tell you, no, I
No.
taking second sucks. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you saw Giovanni's post after the tournament.
I
He
did not.
posted on he posted a picture on his story. I think it was your shot because you were on the back side of him and I was on the front side of him. And so you got that shot of him bent over.
Oh yeah.
And I sent him the other side of it because I happened to be on the other side and got the same shot. So I was like, well, now you have both sides. But he posted that up on his story, and he posted second place sucks with a sad face. That's all he posted. And listen, coming from Zayo, this is somebody that has experienced both sides of that statement, right? So she can tell you how much it sucked to be in second and all that. Side note, I know we're talking about the girls. Side note, I know he wrestles for Pennsylvania now, but she is a Florida girl to us, and just heartbroken for the way Val's tournament ended there with the concussion. I was really rooting for her. So I sure hope Val's getting better. I hope she's doing better, and I look forward to seeing what she does in college. She's off to Iowa, but you were there for that match, and I was
Mhm.
trying to watch it on the phone, and I caught kind of that part of it, and Yeah, just a little heartbroken for her. She's a great girl, great young lady, and I was hoping to see her go off to the sunset with another stop sign.
Yeah. It's one of those situations. I was actually having a conversation with a couple of people around me when it happened, and I'm a huge advocate, I should say. Like, I do think that I do think we're doing the right thing. Like, we should take a moment. We should see if a kid is really okay. I mean, back in the day, man, I got my bell
Yeah.
rung and like they just picked me
How
up.
many fingers? They'd go like this. How many fingers am I holding up? And you'd say two, and they'd be, all right, give him his helmet back. He's good.
Yeah. So I mean, but that said, you know, I wasn't probably 15 feet from Val watching her do the concussion protocol. It looked like she was okay. I'm not a trainer. I don't know. Like, I can't say anything. Um, I could tell it almost like became a little bit of an anxiety thing for her, because as they were really questioning her and everything, I think there came a realization of, oh my goodness, I'm like, this, my match might be done. Um, and that kind of, like, kind of made you feel like I needed to answer all the questions right, and all the things and everything else.
Yeah.
Um, I like, I, I'm again, I'm a supporter of going through the process and everything else. Val is going to have a wonderful career. She's going to do fantastic in the future. This is one event, no big deal, right? I know
Yep.
it means the world right now, but if they got it right and they didn't allow her to compete because they got it right, that's okay. She's going to have a wonderful, wonderful career, life, so on and so forth.
Yeah. And speaking of that, there's a lot of we hear a lot. We're always quick to say, "Oh, Fargo should have done this better. The ref should have done that better. The medical staff should have done that better. They should have done that better." I tell you what, the medical staff did a great job with concussion protocol. At least the last 4 days I was there. Look, I watched a lot of kids get told it was over in tears, but they came out. They would call and get a second opinion. They wouldn't just make the decision. The one trainer wouldn't just make the decision by his or herself. She would call in, or he would call in for a second opinion. You'd see the doctor come out, or whoever the head medical staff was come out. They would then go through the protocol with them, and then they would determine at that moment pass or fail. Right. So I'm really glad that they did that. I know some people out there might say they passed people that should have failed them, and they failed people they should have passed them, and blah blah blah. But I was glad to see the process that way, because I've seen things. I mean, a few years ago in our state where the kid got thrown on the concrete, and then they stood him back up and they let him wrestle, and then he landed back on the outside, and he stood up, and then they let him wrestle. And then he ends up winning the match and wins the state title. So then it's hard to say, "Oh my God, that was awesome. He came back to win." But as a parent of children, I, I I know how important it is to win a state title, but man, you just hope in the future that guy.
Yeah, it's not that important. I mean, I never
Yeah,
won one, so I mean, but I will tell you that, yeah, I look, I'm a fan of the process. Like, let the process
yeah,
happen. Far too often during the course of the history of all sorts of sports, but history of wrestling not being, like, definitely being a part of that, is there are people who should not step back on the mat after getting their
yeah.
bell rung.
And
And
listen, I'm
and
happy.
I
I'm
don't know,
happy.
and I don't know
Yeah,
about Val. I
right.
just don't know.
And I'm very happy for the young man in Florida that came back, and the crowd went crazy. Remember it? It was so wild, and
I do, but
everybody was stoked for
I
the
was
guy.
so it was there's no way in the world he should have been back on that mat.
Oh, my sister-in-law, who is a physical therapist and a sports whatever, an athletic trainer, whatever, and she has her master's in it. So she's not she didn't just go get her certification. She is someone that does this for a living for many years, and she was frustrated by watching the process. But I
Yeah.
got to tell you, it was done and handled very well in Fargo as far as when I was there. I thought it was good because we want these kids to be able to wrestle and be able to get good grades and be able to think and grow up and have a family and do things cognizantly. But Georgia, man, Araya Mills, wow. That's all I can say is wow. That little guy,
Yeah.
he showed up, he came to wrestle, and man, oh man, did he do it? And it wasn't a walk in the park for him. His bracket was deep, his brackets were strong, and that kid wrestled his tushy off.
Yeah. So we're finishing up with Georgia. Sorry for this for the Georgia people that it took us this long to get to the state of Georgia, but
Yeah, yeah,
we do
sorry.
we
It's
do
it's
end
my
with
it's my ADD. I get off and I
we
go
do
down a
end
rabbit
with
hole.
a bang because Araya is one of the few. Now, I would say it's been a while since we've seen somebody cut around 2 stop signs, but that's actually not true. Michael Mako had it for the state of Florida last year, carrying around 2 stop signs. So, but it is a pretty rare occurrence. It's not something that happens all that often to win both styles. Araya did something that very few people have done in that he won it in 2 different weights. Won it at 88 and he won it at 94. He won at 88 in freestyle, 94, excuse me, in Greco. And you know what? Drew, so the junior, the freestyle boys for the state of Georgia were pretty special. Drew Gorman made the finals, came very close to beating Vega, looked fantastic on his way. Gabe Swan, new to Baylor in the fall, but knockout champion, 2-time Georgia State champion, won a title for Georgia. And you know, I got a little bit of grief from the Swan family because when I picked Can't Miss Hammer, right? I picked Can't Miss Hammer for juniors as being Drew Gorman, and I mentioned Bambinelli and Logan Paradise and Antonio Mills and lots of these different names. I did not mention Gabe Swan. And I didn't mention Gabe Swan for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's a first-year junior. So he won a Fargo title as a first-year junior, and he won it in a weight class. I haven't seen Gabe wrestle that well ever. Like, he wrestled on another level in Fargo. And I expected it with Araya. I expected it with lots of different individuals. Genevieve Vaughn made a run to 3rd in her final Fargo appearance. But there were a couple people that I was surprised. I'm not surprised that I should say I'm not surprised that Swan was an All-American. He really dominated to get to the finals. Then he got down, wrestled super smart, and found a way to come back and win the title. I mean, he wrestled so well. So anyway,
It was it was fun to watch, and yeah, like you said, I mean Georgia. I mean they had two in the finals in 16U men Greco. They had one win it. They had a champ and a fifth placer in 16U freestyle, and then the girls they had a finalist in Gorbazovas. I probably totally screwed that up. And
Garbazovas, yeah.
Grula with 7th, and then yeah, the big four of Mills, Stifler, Gorman, and Swan that did that in the freestyle, and then Greco, a kid I really love is Conlon Tank Weaver. What a special young man he is, and Emil Necula. Sorry if I screwed the name up, but
Emil Necula, yeah.
and then
So
Genevieve on, as you mentioned earlier. But yeah, Conlon Tank, what an awesome kid. I got to meet him a couple times, and he's just what a cool family.
he's so I love talking to Tank. He's such a good kid. I really young man. I mean, he's off to college this coming year. He's one who has just continually gotten better. And I'm going to let everybody know that was not paying attention to the brackets nearly as closely as some of us were. But Tank drew the number 1 seed in both freestyle and in Greco. He lost his first match in both styles and
He wrestled all
had
the way back.
wrestled all the way back through in Greco to make the podium, wrestled all the way back through in freestyle and got near the podium. I mean, Tank, talk about being like, he had a tough draw, and man, it just shows the kind of mettle that somebody has to kind of battle through, to come back through and
Yeah.
do that. I thought that
And
was pretty
you
cool.
know, and I thought, I mean, there was a few. If there were some screwings going on, we saw KJ get caught in one by the line. He got KJ. The guy stepped out of bounds, then proceeded to throw KJ for four. The ref falls down and rolls around. There's no way the ref sees it. They look at each other and they throw up four. You can't challenge. I mean, you could challenge if you want, but the camera can't see the corners, and it cost KJ to move on, and it was tough. And then the Antonio Mills match in Greco. I remember you and I walking in, and they came running up to you and they said something happened, bad call for him there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
to
and
move on.
Antonio might have felt like he got a bad call in freestyle because he lost a 1-point match to the eventual champion, Gage Botero, in the quarterfinals. I think it was the quarterfinals. And Botero stepped out. They continued the action. Botero got the takedown. No point awarded for the step out. And I guess that's the right call, is that the action has to continue. But I thought the action had to continue so that the person who got the step out was afforded the opportunity to get two instead of one. It doesn't matter. You know, I will say it's very difficult to officiate. It's very difficult to have all those things come together.
Right.
Last thing I would say is two shout outs. JT Taylor, USA Wrestling Developmental Coach of the Year. That's fantastic. Team Florida was awarded that before the Greco final or the freestyle final?
Before the freestyle final.
And Cale Tucker who wrestled last year for the state of Alabama as a freshman. He was the official of the tournament for the juniors as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. I don't know how old Cale is, but he's only a freshman in college. He wrestled, or he officiated unbelievably well. And I'm telling you, the level of officiating is very different. And he is a fantastic official.
You know, something I wanted to say is schools. You saw South Dade had a good showing.
Mm-hmm.
LHP had a good showing with four
Yep.
All-Americans. Tampa Jesuit had a couple of kids All-American. I'm not so familiar with around the other states yet, as I'm learning. I'm trying. I do my research. But you had mentioned Baylor had a good showing.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any other programs where you saw multiple kids come out? I mean,
Mill Creek
Osceola obviously had two. Mill Creek
had two with both Mills boys. So the one thing that might fly under the radar that is a school by a small school. So everybody you mentioned is a pretty big school, small school in the state of Georgia, Lumpkin County. Lumpkin County had Greta Garbazovas and Caden Skrula, two 16U All-Americans, both wrestle at Lumpkin County. That's pretty cool.
Do you want to give a shout out to Roderick Brown for All-Americaning in the Greco?
I already did. And Roderick.
Oh, okay.
Roderick, you did fantastic. I thought you were going to do great. Dan was the one who was behind the scenes telling me that he wasn't sure. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Definitely. You know, I think that, you know, this became a show talking about lots of different names and talking about lots of different individuals. And we didn't get to everyone. We didn't talk about everyone. It's just impossible to do so. The one thing I would say though is there were a lot of wrestlers who had some really good tournaments who didn't make the podium, but should feel very, very proud of themselves for the way that they wrestled at the toughest tournament in the world, the toughest tournament for high school kids in
Yeah,
the world.
and speaking of Rod, one of my favorite moments was when he, after his placing match, he came over and he hugged me. And when he hugged me, he goes, "I did it, I did it, I did it." And then of course Mason was there, and Mason hugged him, and just good for him, and
Yeah.
good for all those guys. But there was any matches that were fun to watch. I mean, one match that sticks out in my mind is Jace Paradon and Sam Herring. That was a really fun match to watch. I mean, uh, probably one of the best matches I've seen Jace wrestle, even though it came in a loss. But obviously, we know how good Sam Herring is, and but that was a really fun match to watch. Even though our Florida guy was on the wrong end of it, but I think even talking to Jace after the match, he would tell you that he wrestled well, and he's improving. But that was a match that was really fun to watch. Um, anything that sticks out in your mind?
Um,
CJ Torres and
Melvin Miller.
It was a great match. Listen, I know my boy CJ, love him like a son, and I know he was on the south end of that, but man, he wrestled really well. It was a really fun match to watch. Melvin just got him there at the end with a couple of quick points, but that was a very entertaining match to watch.
There's actually there's actually, I mean, there's so many. I can't pick
Oh,
out any matches. And
Giovanni Solis winning with 3 seconds left to make the finals. I dropped my camera and started screaming, and then realized, shit, I need to take a picture. And I put it back up, and I got it just in time for the high five and the celebration, because I just went nuts. Peter Maka, and I know it's Florida because I only was shooting Florida. Maybe one day I can grow up and help him shoot all seven. But right now I'm just a baby and I stay in one state. Um, but Peter Mako coming back from like a 12.7 point twice was incredible.
no, there were
I
that, I mean, and as a fan, right? As a fan, it's hard to take in everything. But I'll tell you what, when they're on the stage and there's only two matches going on, and you're able to focus in and take pictures, um, and and watch the wrestling, the level of wrestling of a Keegan Bassett, the level of wrestling of a Angelo Posada, the level of wrestling of some of these kids that you may not know, they wrestle for other states, but I'll tell you what, just so much fun to watch. So much fun
yeah,
to watch. These are kids that you're going to know in the future if you don't know them now.
I mean, a really good match was KJ and, is it Boo, the young man from Indiana that goes to Lake Highland Prep.
Yeah.
I mean, that match came down to like the last 30
I think it's
seconds.
Bo, but I could be wrong.
KJ and Bo. That was a fantastic match to watch. And you could see because Bo is at a Florida school now, you could see all the Florida coaches and all the Florida kids that know him and everybody around watching both sides of that. Uh, that was fantastic. I mean, that could have went either way right there. That was a fun match to watch. And congratulations, obviously, to Bo, who went on to become a champion, correct?
You did. Yeah.
Yep. And good for him. Did he All American in Greco too? I think he All American in Greco also.
I think he did. Yeah.
So good for him. Shout out to him, Indiana / Lake Highland Prep. Congratulations to them. But yeah, and of course, Kate, we love KJ. But that was, I mean, I could just keep going. There were
Well,
so many good
there were
matches.
so many good matches. I mean, there was some really good wrestling. There were some great matches. Um, yeah, go watch the level You want to watch a really interesting match. Watch Gabe Swan in his finals match. Get up, then get behind, keep his composure. Know he has a 4-point throw or a 4-point move in his back pocket, so he has criteria, and to watch his way of wrestling the match, his way of wrestling the last 30 seconds of that match is just it's really important because you have to win matches like that to win Fargo titles. So
Yeah. And then I keep, and I got to tell you, as somebody taking pictures there, sometimes you catch yourself going, "Oh, wait a second, I want to watch this match. It's so good," and you realize, well, you're going to take pictures of it, right? Um,
all right. So
Trying to see here.
are we talking Olympics next week? What are we doing?
Yeah, the next week is Tuesday. I don't think I'll be here. Well, I may be able to do something. I'll be
Okay.
Let's see, I think Sunday night we go down to the Keys and we're there till I think Wednesday.
Oh, must be nice.
Yeah.
Hey, I guess his job is keeping him busy. All right. Well,
Was
you
it
guys may see us for another edition. Or next week. You might not, depending on whether Dan can tear himself away from um a a a, a drink on the beach, and while the rest of us are all beginning school again and working and focused in on stuff.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, we're gonna go down to see my dad because Daniel has what, 2 more, I think 2 more weeks, and then he goes back to college. So we're gonna go down and spend a few days with Grandpa so he can see him and have a few days to hang out with him. And I was just on here. I was just looking up on the Marine Corps Junior Nationals. Okay, Florida. It goes in alphabetical order, right? Oh, there it is. I'm just blind. Yeah, it was good matches. Lots of fun to watch. I had a good time. I was sick, by the way, for all 4 days, and it was just terrible.
No, nobody needs to hear that. Nobody needs to
Thank God.
know he was sick, but we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
God I was staying with he and his wife, and oh man.
We had a nice
But
Airbnb. It was a great trip. It was a great trip.
yes, I want to have the proper brothers pasta fagioli with sausage when I'm not sick because it was good. I vaguely remember it, but it was good. I want to have it when I'm healthy.
Oh man. All right.
Pasta fusilli, proper
Dan,
boys style.
Dan,
Yes.
who do you have coming on the show? Anybody today?
Nobody today, just the Dirty South podcast, baby.
All
I do have
right.
to go help my father-in-law with something, so I'm going to go do that and then come back and edit this.
All right. Well, guys, on that note, and we don't need to know Dan's schedule, we will see you next week. We appreciate you joining us for a Fargo recap. It was a ton of fun. I had a great time. I always have a great time.
Yeah, and maybe we should try to reach out to the 5 champs and have them come on.
All right. Maybe. Works for me. Maybe next week's show.
Yeah, let's do it. I like it.
All right. All right, man. You take care.
All right. See you, bud.